Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Mike DeHaan and Dan Austin. From wins, losses, horror stories, and tactics for optimizing your business, Mike and Dan take a real, uncensored deep dive into the ins and outs of running a full-time real estate investment and wholesaling business.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 37 of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast.
Nice.
And it is June 10th, 2022 as we are recording this. And I think it's safe to say the market has officially started to turn. It's been an interesting couple of weeks, not only in just like we've seen it a little bit with like listings and stuff that we've had up, definitely been like a slower response rate. But I think now this week as well, the marketing has started to slow down. Especially in like our more expensive markets that we're in. And this is something that's been reported across the board in some of the different national groups that we're in. People are reporting marketing response numbers kind of similar to when COVID first started, which was low. I don't know if you remember this way back when, Dan, but I remember, COVID like kind of like officially started like middle of March. I remember we sent out a batch of mail at like the week after it kind of like started to shut down. And I don't even know if you like necessarily know this. We sent out, it was like 5,200 pieces of mail. And do you remember how many calls we got?
I don't remember. It wasn't enough because we didn't close the deal. I know that much.
It was zero. That's why.
Was that one of the many $5,000 chunks that we spent money and never got a single dime back?
We did after a while. It built momentum. We actually did end up closing a deal off of that batch, but it didn't come until May.
Yeah. We assumed it was going to be immediate.
Exactly. Well, we're expecting at least to get a call because at that point we'd been mailing for a few months.
Dude, people are afraid to even check their mail, man.
I know. Back then it was too, right? You're out there.
I knew a guy that refused to accept Amazon packages unless they sat outside for 2 weeks. During that like whole thing, I was like, "You're an idiot."
So crazy. I know. I remember watching this video where it was this guy. He was like a nurse. Talking about like how you're supposed to disinfect all of your groceries. Yeah. And there was like this whole thing where you're supposed to like wipe them down, like keep them separated. And I remember one time it was like very early in COVID, we came back and we did this whole process. And afterwards, you're like, yeah, fuck it. This can't be that.
I don't even clean my vegetables when they come in from the supermarket half the time, let alone COVID search.
I hope that's not true. That's the podcast thing, man. All the people that have touched that.
I know, including me and my daughter with picking her nose, putting her hands on all the apples. Yeah.
And they spray it down with all that wax. You actually not washing?
No, I do.
Okay, I hope so.
Just not my apples.
That'd be disgusting. It's not your apples. Yeah, right.
Is that by the way, is that a bonsai tree?
It is. Yeah. It's a Chinese elm. It's what's actually crazy. That's a 15-year-old tree.
Where'd you buy it from?
And there was a lawn and garden show here in
you pay about
Spokane at the
$350, $500. Yeah.
For that? Oh, that's about $6,000, I think.
Dude, they go that expensive. That's why I'm asking. I've investigated looking at bonsai trees for a while. There's not too many like things in my life that have as much influence as like Mr. Miyagi and from Karate Kid and Maverick from Top Gun. That's like basically who I am today.
That's funny. Yeah, I think that one. So you can get like just the tree, like if you didn't have like the pot and like it's like not developed at all for like $50. I think I got that one for $150.
That's cheap. You can buy some that are like thousands of dollars. I was actually literally like 6 months ago looking at these, and you could buy them online for like $350 for like little ones. But I didn't find one I liked yet, so I'm pretty selective.
Yeah, that one was $150, and it has like like the little pot and like the rocks all embedded in there, and that's like the art that the guy did for it.
I love those things. I think it's cool.
But that's a 15-year-old tree, and but it's crazy. Is if I were to take that thing and I don't know, plant it in like a Chinese forest and come back in like 1,000 years, that thing would be 40 feet tall.
Is that what the guy told you?
No, that's actually true. Like I looked him up.
Google.
When, like that species of tree. Yeah, they are basically just a super slow growing tree.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's not a dwarf tree because it's stuck in a pot.
No. So like if you were to go and plant that, it just grows like crazy slow. But
That is cool.
cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good backdrop for the video. It goes along with my
Yeah.
shirt. If you guys go check us out
Where's
on
my
YouTube,
swag at?
you can see our. I sent you one to your
You
house.
did not. Which house did you send it to? I own several.
You own 28 of them. I don't know. Whichever one auto-filled on Amazon is the one that I went to. So you better start calling our tenants and see
Yeah,
which one stole
I
your
did not
shirt.
get a shirt. I'm kind of upset now. I didn't get any of my swag.
Yeah. Well, I got a box of them
Okay.
here. But yeah, if you guys go check us out on YouTube, you can see our Collecting Keys podcast shirts.
So cool.
Mine. And if you want one, first 5 people that send me a DM on Instagram, I'll send you one for free.
I'm DMing you right now.
Actually, I'll send you one. You got to pay for your own shipping, but I'll give you the free shirt if you send me.
Don't be so stingy. You can have it for free. I'll pay for it.
No, we're gonna have like the one listener. We get one listener on a regular basis. I've sort of learned the analytics. That's over in England. It might be like a cousin or something of mine.
Probably
to us
talking shit.
And they're gonna DM me and be like, yeah, send me my shirt. I'm like, bro, I'm not paying $47 international shipping.
Right. Oh man.
And I'll bring you one next time I go over there. But yeah, we're in a tangent there. So the market's officially turning though, especially in our more expensive markets. Start of June, the mail and marketing response has been poor.
Like not as great as we're normally seeing in the.
Not as great. It's been like terrible, like abysmal.
It's not. I think you got to seasonally adjust it.
No, bro. like we're at like 10% of normal right now.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, it does happen, right? And that's kind of part of the whole game. And that's something I was thinking about today too, thinking back to when COVID started. And I remember because we were just getting our business started. I remember hopping on a virtual meetup, which is like a real estate meetup, that was put on by one of the large wholesalers here. And there was several of the other large businesses that were on that call. And they were basically all making the proclamation that like things are starting to turn. So we're all going to stop marketing. Right. And they were like, like one of them like laid off all of his staff. He basically like several of them like actually shut the doors for a while. And I mean, maybe we're ignorant because we were new. Mostly. I don't know. But there was us and the 2 other businesses that are now basically running Spokane. We kind of just kept trucking and just kept going. And we're like, I don't know, we'll see what happens. And now the 3 of us monopolize Spokane and those businesses are gone.
It's funny is all those guys are back, but they're solopreneurs. They're just trying to scratch the surface again because they shut down, not that they lost everything, but shut their entire business down. But then they took that time. Now they're back trying to claw their way back in, maybe in a different niche or whatever. But they definitely lost a lot of tailwind when they did that.
For sure. They gave up all their momentum that they had. And I think the biggest thing to remember for this style of business is it's a momentum heavy business. Like as you're going through it, even though it can get uncomfortable when these periods where things are slowing down, things aren't as clear, like if you made a lot of money in real estate in the last couple of years, congratulations. You basically just played the game. You had the Grand Theft Auto cheat code on. Everyone was winning for the last 2 years. And now it basically comes down to who has the resources and who has the stomach to sort of keep pushing through and keep riding out the ups and downs. And as things start to turn, the worst thing you can do is stop because you're going to give up your momentum.
Right.
And what you have to do is you should almost like double down on your marketing, keep doing what you're doing and keep maybe doing stuff that's going to help optimize your systems and make your brand stronger and just make your presence in your market stronger. Because that way, when things do start to turn up again, and you have people that are now sitting on a bunch of mail or a bunch of marketing, or they're getting a bunch of outreach again, once everyone starts to, all the people who have paused start to kick back up again, you're the one that stays with them because you have the best brand recognition, because you have the best follow-up systems, because you had the most consistent marketing that was getting in front of them over that period of time. Like that weighs out. That definitely like helps out a lot as you're going through these periods.
And like you said, it's a momentum game, right? You got to keep it going. And the way I put it in perspective is like, so the biggest flipper in your town, right? So maybe what do you think they've got? Say 40 people on staff, crews and all that. So are they going to just stop? Or are they going to shut their entire business down right now? No, they might pivot, they might reduce their inventory, they might be looking at certain deals. So you have to adapt and find the deals that they're going to be looking for, because they're trying to protect themselves so that when they're flipping in a downhill, they're not losing money. Because flipping on a market that's going down is not good. You always want to be at the bottom of that trough and working your way up, because the house gets worth more as you hold it. But anyhow, yeah, they're still going to need to have inventory. So if you're the guy providing all of that inventory for them, and you've adjusted for what they're buying in this market, which is going to be a little bit more conservative, which is fair, but they're not going to just shut their doors and lay all 40 people off and stop collecting a paycheck. They're not going to stop.
I mean,
They might. And guess what? As we found, somebody will fill that void. Somebody else will be ready and aggressive and need deals, and you can provide those deals.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And, it is interesting. And, I think it's like that with every business, but I think something that's direct to seller like this is especially true, to have that momentum carrying through it. And that's one of the big reasons too I like direct mail as well, is because it leaves it's funny, it's like maybe a pun, it leaves a paper trail in your marketing system, right? Because you'd be surprised when you send direct mail how many people keep the stuff that you send them, especially if they're like of decent quality.
Yep.
It's like we send, like kind of like nicer quality letters or like postcards or things that are like branded, and they don't just look like trash. Like if you're sending these yellow bankruptcy letters look like trash, people just throw those away. But if you have stuff that has some tangible value to it, or like it feels higher quality, people will just, like, especially older people, stick them in a drawer, and it'll like be there forever. Like we just got a call, was it like, I guess it was late last week, from a seller. And he said, I just got a call from so-and-so, who was our acquisition manager that stopped working for us in May of 2021.
You got a letter.
And
you got a letter with her name on it.
I got a letter. Yeah. I got a letter from her. And, that's when I went and looked at the last time we sent mail with her as like the sender in the mail was February of 2020. So they had kept this letter for 16 months, 15 months.
That's a long time.
It's a long time. And they just called us out of the blue. And we're like, hey, we're curious if you were still interested in buying our house. Whatever that situation is, I have no idea. We didn't get a deal from it because they want to waste money. But, it's still the premise of that. We've had similar things like that happen all the time, because they just kept the mail, right? And then, I guarantee there was probably something where they went and they looked us up. They saw our brand website. They've probably been hit with retargeting on Google and things like that, because we run all that sort of stuff. And, here we go. And they gave us a call. So, anyway, super important as we're getting into these kind of uncertain times, keep that momentum up, keep marketing, keep pushing, keep making offers. And then I think just the big change you got to make is be super cautious not to be making offers or making purchases based off speculation that things will keep going up.
Yeah.
If you're looking at things from a 30-year timeline, they likely will. But honestly, if you're a wholesaler or you're a recreational investor, you're probably not looking at things on that. Or like, are you trying to, do flips or those sort of things? You need to look on a shorter timeline, which is, 6 months to 2 years. And that period of time for real estate right now is a big question, and what the outcome's going to be, I don't know, but it's important just to keep progressing.
Don't use the same numbers that you did on your last flip that you closed last month. That's really what it comes down to. You've got to be a little bit more conservative, a little less optimistic, not completely pessimistic, but we're still taking down properties ourselves. We're still buying. We're still investors. We're just making sure that if we're taking a deal down, it makes sense for us in the near term to hold it. And that's kind of really a good piece of criteria to look at.
Yep. And then, you can leverage this whole situation as well in your sales pitches to leads. Even yesterday we got somebody that responded back, and they thought they were being smart, and they're like, yeah, I'm not going to sell for $400,000 to you. I can just hold on to it and sell for $800,000.
Yeah. Good luck, bud.
And we're like, well, that time's long gone, bro. Sorry. That's not how it works anymore. And even if you had said that a couple of years ago, they would have called the bluff, and maybe they would have been somewhat right. But now it's like certain that that's not the way that it's going to go.
There's enough market news, whether it's the stock market or housing market, that people are talking about now, that it's like, okay, do you not watch TV? Because I know you do, Mr. Seller. Yeah, that's
I
all
know,
you
right?
gotta.
Yeah, you're probably
Yeah,
watching it right
exactly.
now at 2 p.m. on a
Ex-
Thursday, sitting
yeah,
in your living
exactly.
room.
So come on, don't use that BS with me. But hey, they're
Yeah,
negotiating too. You just got to be able to have the right filters on when you're negotiating with them, so you can cut through those and find the true
yeah,
motivation.
the true motivation. What a
Mm.
segue that was. That
I'm
was a
getting
great
good at
segue.
that.
So that was yeah, you are still working on the endings, but
Yeah.
you're getting your segues done there. So yeah, that was what we want to talk about for our educational piece today. Is when your marketing is coming through and you're trying to figure out how to be efficient. One of the biggest hurdles that people face as they start to follow up with these leads and pursue these leads, and we see this pretty regularly with people in our instant investor program, where they're spinning these wheels with people that aren't truly motivated. And there's some great ways you can sort of figure out if they're worth talking to or not. So really quick note about our instant investor program. And when we get back, we'll talk about how to truly pre-screen a lead and see if they're worth your time. So we'll be right back.
Mhm.
The Instant Investor Program is our 12-week group coaching program, which includes a self-driven course and access to our private investor community. We will take you through the full process of how we find our leads, how we market, how we do our sales and follow-up, and how we determine the best strategy for every opportunity that comes our way. On top of that, you will also join a community of other like-minded investors nationwide that are all marching towards the same goals, and you will have direct access to Dan and myself so you can continue learning and growing with us as we continue to adapt and grow our business. So whether you're a new investor or already established, our systems can help take you to the next level. So if you think you might be a good fit, go to the instantinvestorprogram.com and schedule a call, and we can have you talking to motivated leads in as little as 2 weeks. All right, guys, welcome back. So pre-screening leads, very important, especially as you start to get a lot of volume of leads coming in, regardless of what kind of marketing you're doing. I guess unless you're doing like really niche, marketing, we're expecting a low response rate. You will undoubtedly reach a time where you're having way more leads coming in than you or your staff can reasonably manage, while also giving them the appropriate amount of time, like giving the good leads the appropriate amount of time. So there's kind of a whole process that comes into play of how exactly do you pre-screen your leads without prejudging them, and how do you determine if they actually have a motivation that are worthwhile talking to?
Yep.
Because it's not always as simple. If you've talked to any leads before, you can't just say like, well, what is your motivation? What is your problem that's going on? Like,
They are
why,
not
why
forthright
is
with
your
that.
life in
Yeah,
shambles?
absolutely.
They're not going to
Yeah.
be forthright because, a lot of times they're embarrassed. A lot of times they sometimes they don't even
Yep.
know. Right. Or like they have situations that are out of their control. They don't want to share with you. So they don't trust you yet. So there's a few different ways that we go about it. And one of the basic ways that we do is we kind of have a checklist of things that we always ask, right? This sort of is structured in a way in order to build into the conversation and establish that trust before you start asking the difficult questions. So the main things we always ask are, do you actually want to sell?
That's an important one.
It's a very important question. It seems silly if you think that they called you. Of course they do, but very often they don't actually want to sell. They're just kind of looking for a sucker's offer, right? So do they actually want to sell? If they do want to sell, when are they looking to sell? What is their timeline, right? Is it in the next 30 days? Is it in the next 6 months? A red flag answer is only if I get the offer that I want, right? That means they're probably not going to be that
Efficient.
motivated. Okay. Yep, exactly. So what's the timeline to sell? What is their condition of their house? Has it been, and you don't say like, the best way to do it is, have you had any updates recently? Is there any major damage that needs to be taken care of? Things like that ask more specifics. I've heard a lot of people coach like, how would you rate your house on a scale of 1 to 10? And you know what everyone always says? A 6 or 7.
Yeah, it's like the cop out response. It's not an actual value, honestly.
Yeah. So basically what they'll either say a 10 because, they aren't actually being serious and they're screwing with you, or they'll say a 6 or a 7, which could mean the house is horrible or the house is just fine and like it's kind of just outdated. Right. We found those very similar. I mean, we've walked in the house where people have said, oh yeah, it's a 6. And you're like, man, there is literally a science experiment growing on your back.
And I think the big way you look at that is like, okay, what's the age of the house? What's the seller? Okay, so if it's a 1950s built home and the seller's 80 years old, when do you really
Mhm.
think they've actually done updates? Because I would guess that most of those updates that the seller's talking about were done in the early 90s, if at all. So you just got to ask the question, right? And then
Mhm.
you're going to have to deduce what's the condition of that property and know the
Yeah.
neighborhood and all that sort of stuff. Because if it's like a nice neighborhood that was built in the 50s in our home market, that you could drive by and say, yeah, that's not a bad neighborhood. It's probably going to be okay. Even if it
Mhm.
has original stuff, it's probably going to be an okay condition just because that's the
Yeah.
neighborhood, the demographic of people living there.
Correct. And I think that's a very important point too, is your definition of good. If you're the kind of person that is trying to become a real estate investor and is willing to spend, thousands and thousands of dollars trying to find investment opportunities, your financial position and living position is probably very different than many of these
Mhm.
people. So realize that their definition of good or fine is likely very different from yours. And that's just going to be the nature of the
Yep.
beast, right? So, so third thing, does the house, like, what's the general condition? Does it need updates? Are there any major repairs that are needed? The fourth thing, why did they call you as opposed to a realtor? Now that is a great wraparound way to ask what their motivation is without actually saying, do you have any financial problems? Do you have any personal problems? Things like that, that aren't actually going to elicit a super kind response, especially if they don't trust you
Mhm.
yet. And if you just ask, like, why are you calling me instead of a realtor? You'd be surprised at what comes out from that. Like, some people will say, like, I don't want to deal with a realtor,
Yeah.
which can be kind of a cop out answer. That can be true. That can be them trying to avoid something out. But a lot of times people will say, like, oh, well, I'm actually getting divorced. Like, I need to do something that's kind of simple in this. Or they'll say, well, I have tenants. My tenants aren't paying, and I worry about having to deal with a realtor with that whole process and having to be able to do
Yeah.
open houses, things like that. Those are all great things to start to reveal the
Mhm.
motivations without having to ask that
Because a lot
question.
of times you might know what the
Um,
motivations are from the data, right? If they came off a
correct.
bankruptcy list or a divorce list, you already know that. But you're not going to come out and say, "Hey, Mrs. Seller, I heard you're getting divorced. Your husband cheat on you. You want to sell your
Correct.
house, right?" Yeah.
Yeah, and that is super valid. As if you are going and you're stacking your lists, which is a big part of what we teach in our instant investor program, is, and how we get a lot of our deals, is we stack these different niche lists. You can go and pull public data that have people that have bankruptcies, people that have liens, people that have all these vacant properties, things like that. And you find the ones that have the most number of issues, and you mail them or you outreach to them specifically. And when people call in, because those are the only people you targeted, there's a skeleton in their
Right.
closet,
Yeah. Exactly.
right? But they don't necessarily need to know
Yeah,
that you have that,
absolutely. Yeah.
right?
Well, and I like that.
You need to wait for them to give
I
that
like
to
that
you.
last question for a couple reasons too. One, for trying to uncover that motivation without actually saying like, "Hey, what's going on in your life that makes you want to sell to me?" Right. But also, I like it because I think a lot of newer wholesalers are worried that maybe a realtor is their competition, so they don't want to bring up
Correct.
the R word in the conversation because then the
Mhm.
seller will know realtors are out there. It's like, no, they already know that. Uh, but
Right.
they're calling you, or they've raised their hand to you,
Yeah.
recognizing that's an option for them, and maybe realtor would be a number one option if unless you provide something better, or maybe they have that motivation like Mike was just explaining, where they're like, you know what, I'm going through this messy divorce, or I have these tenants, I just want something easy and I'm worried about what'll happen, or I don't want to pay realtor
Mhm.
fees, and you told me in your postcard that you don't charge fees.
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, on that note too, we've legitimately had people that are just like, I hate
Hmm.
realtors.
Yeah.
And we're like, why do you hate realtors? Like, I just think they suck. And they're like, okay, well, if you list the realtor, you'll make more money. Like, I don't
Hmm.
care. I'm so stubborn. I hate realtors so
Yeah.
much. I will take
Yeah.
less money
Yeah.
just so I don't have
Yep.
to use them.
Totally. And so there's tons of reasons why,
Yeah.
but don't be, I guess the point being is don't be afraid to bring up the R word, because they know they
Yeah.
exist, and they aren't
Mhm.
necessarily your competition. If your competition is typically either going to list with a realtor or them going with you, it's probably not that thick of a deal in general anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then after you ask all those questions, and these things can kind of be over, a prolonged conversation. This can be over several conversations. You kind of just have to read the room. Like, I know
Yeah.
that can be challenging, especially if you're over the phone, but this is a sales-based job, right? Like, there is a sales approach, and you have to be able to pick up on verbal social cues and read the energy of the other person. But after you have those basic questions figured out, the last question you ask, and this is another thing people teach us, they'll start with this question, it should be the last question you ask, is, what is your price expectation for this house? What are you hoping to sell this
Hmm.
house for? And that will be kind of indicative of if there's going to be a deal or not. Not particularly in what the number is, but in how they sort of present that number to you, right? Because pretty much everyone, I would say 90% of the deals we've gotten, they have asked for a number that's significantly higher than we ended up
Yeah.
contracting it
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. And
Right. But what you got to do is you listen to how they ask for that number, weighed in with the pre-screening questions that you um, ask them and like their situation. And you have to be able to sort of infer if that is actually what they, need to sell it for, or what they're willing to sell it for, or if that's just what they're asking for, which are very, very
Yeah, I
different.
think that this is like a pivotal point in a conversation because most people, like lay people, when it comes to negotiations, they think that that point in time, that question is the most important question of everything. They're so used to in their mind negotiating, and there's always a winner and there's always a loser, and it's the car sales guy who's taking the piece of paper back to their manager and coming back with another number, and you say, "No, I want it cheaper," and they come back and they're like, "No, we want it for this much." It's actually not. All the other questions we just asked are the most important piece. But you got to remember your sellers might be a little coy and they think that this is the most important thing. And so they're negotiating based on whatever they believe a negotiation is, which you as an experienced wholesaler know that that's not how you negotiate. And it's not just about that number.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It goes back to the core of this is a people
Mm-hmm.
business. It's not a real estate business like it is because the real estate's the collateral, but it's all about the people and solving their
Yep.
problems. And the people that go into it with like the offer first, offer first, offer first, trying to get their number immediately. Those are the kind of people that give us a bad rap because those are the ones that are just looking for the grandma that's ignorant
Absolutely.
to what their house
Absolutely.
is
Which is
worth.
crap.
And they're just like, oh yeah, you want $130,000 for your house that I know is worth 270? Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. I don't care what situation it is. Let's get it locked up right now. And they'll talk real quick and they'll just try
Yeah.
to
Sign
get
it. Sign
it
it.
done. Right. Yeah. Sign
Yeah.
it. Sign it. Exactly. And if you want to do this business correctly and you want to have some longevity and honestly, you want to get more deals without having to, rob grandma or do anything shady, you have to listen to their needs and their wants. And, it should be a win-win situation for
Yeah.
the most
It
part at
doesn't
the end
have
of
to
the
be a
day.
loser and a winner.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't have to be a loser and a winner. Exactly. It's not like you're, I don't know, having like I guess a lot of transactions technically should be win-wins, but sometimes if you get sold on stuff pretty hard, it doesn't feel that way. Like if your sister-in-law or something comes over and, pitches your wife on some MLM products and you see the bill and you're like, what the
Right.
fuck? Like
Personal experience.
that's a win-lose situation.
Yeah.
Trying to support
Yeah.
your business.
That's the thing is most people's experience with sales people are not good because they feel
No,
like they're
for sure.
always getting like somebody's selling them on something and they pay for that thing. Even if they enjoy it, there's still this thing in the back of their head that they lost. So that's where it's so much more
Yeah.
about solving the problem. And that's where you also hear new investors say like, oh, I just felt so bad. I had this rapport with this person that I had to give them this really lowball offer. It's like, yeah, but what are you giving them in return for that? Is that what the property's worth? Or are you just giving them a crappy offer, right? If that's what the property's worth,
Correct.
but in turn, your profit is being earned by helping them. It's not like you're giving them a bad offer. It's that you're helping them solve something and there's some profit in there for you.
Yeah. And it's also, that's where the integrity of it comes in too, right? Because if you're going and giving them a lowball offer, knowing that they're going to be walking away with nothing, or they're going to be, even having to bring money to closing, which I've heard about people doing this. They'll go in and they'll like have an offer where the seller has to bring like $10,000 to closing to pay off their mortgage. Then the wholesaler is assigning it and making like 50.
That's crazy.
It's like, okay, that's shady as fuck. You know what you do? You make 30,000. You allow them to make 10,000, or even better yet, have them make 15. You make 15. My math might've been off there. I don't know. And you know what? You be happy with, you got a pretty decent payday, honestly.
Absolutely.
And they're able to go and do something with their life now, instead of you're putting them into more of a crippling situation. Right. So, like those, the problem solving part of it and the relationship part of this business is super important, and it will allow you to have a better brand. It will allow you to do deals more consistently, and it will allow you to be a positive contributor to society and to be one of these real estate investors who just has such a bad rap and gets spit on by everyone else out there. Like it's just because we do get a bad rap, right?
Yeah.
All investors do.
Yeah.
by the
Doesn't matter how
general
big you are, how
population.
small you are, bad rap. Yep.
Yeah, and everyone looks past the dirtbag houses that we buy, the hoarder houses that are in like a nice neighborhood that we fix up and we sell to a family, and they'll be all pissed off. They'll be like, well, why the hell did you sell that house for $400,000?
Right.
I don't want to have to buy a house for that. Like, you're increasing prices.
Right.
Like, would you rather live next to squatters?
Right.
And some of them would say yes, because they're like, well, now you create homeless people because the squatters are on the street.
God, whatever. Yeah.
Maybe that's a Pacific Northwest.
I think it massively is.
I feel like they don't have.
It's a West Coast thing, in general. Yeah.
Right.
But I guess to summarize it though, kind of what we're talking about though, back to determining lead motivation though, that's super key. Because what we see too a lot of times with newer investors is they're spending a lot of time building rapport, but not moving the dial. They're friend zoned, right, so to speak. And then they feel bad about the offer, and they spent 2 hours on the phone with the person. So qualifying them up front is huge to avoid some of that.
Yeah, it'd avoid a lot of that, and then avoid a lot of drive time, a lot of in-person time that's not necessary. We deal with this with new acquisitions managers, and they come in and work for us. Is they want to pursue every lead to the fullest. So then they're like going and booking appointments for houses like where the person wants $400,000. The house is at its best worth $350,000, and the house needs work, right? Like why are you realistically doing that? And then you listen to the full conversation. They don't actually want to sell. They're just looking for an offer. The house is in great condition. They are willing to work with the realtor if that's what will get them the most money. They don't have like a realistic timeline. Like they don't meet any of the criteria, but they're going and getting in front of them because that person was cordial.
And we need them for our business to meet at least 2 of the 5.
Yeah, that's basically what we do. Is so how the process works for us is the lead comes in. We have a call center that we'll get some of these answers, depending on how well the call center rep takes in the call, which varies pretty dramatically. Our acquisitions manager will call back. They will go through all those qualifying questions and sort of feel out the temperament of the seller and sort of see what the situation feels like. And then if they meet 2 of the 5 situations, 2 of the 5 criteria, so basically, yes, they do want to sell. The house maybe needs some work. Their timeline, we say, is within the next 90 days is what we look at. They are willingly accepting that working with us will make them less than working with a realtor, but they've still chosen to make that choice. And then if their price point is less than what we think the house is worth at its fixed up value. If they meet 2 of those 5 things, then we will go and pursue getting an appointment and spending some time with this person and trying to build that rapport and get a deal done. And then, something that will be interesting is if they meet 2 of those criteria on the initial pre-screen, you'd be surprised how many of the other ones suddenly start to come out as they start to trust you more, as you start to have a better relationship with them, as they start to be willing to share more with you. Most of those deals will end up having, 4 or 5 of those options there.
Right.
So, so super important as you're going through and starting to get a lot of lead volume. And a great thing about having these questions too is it also makes the initial sales process easy to hire for and easy to screen. Easy to hire for and easy to outsource, because you can turn it into a script. You can turn it into a checklist that someone can come in with a little bit of training and actually do that.
And you can have some level of consistency in your business while you're not actually doing the function. You can say, okay, I know they're at least asking these questions and following these processes.
Yep. And then even when you get to a point like, when you're starting out, you're probably gonna be running most of the sales, but you're going to get a lot of leads that you don't have time to pre-screen and, manage your hot leads yourself. So then you bring on a lead manager that does that for you. And then, once you bring on an acquisitions manager, your acquisitions manager will reach a point where they can't, manage all the leads and do the follow-ups. The lead manager do it for them. And then you'll bring on a second acquisitions manager as you're starting to have more leads, and the lead manager can do that for all of them. And it just basically becomes a pipeline, right? Of they have the initial call with the call center or your lead manager or voicemail, however you want to do it. Then they have the pre-screen, and then your skilled salespeople, they only have to spend time with the hottest leads, and they're not spending time trying to hunt people down or chase people down that are
which is the most profitable time for them is motivated leads.
Correct. Yep. And I think when we figured that out, was it about a year and a half ago, and we started getting that system down, that was when our business went from being felt like we were sprinting all over the place trying to figure stuff out, to all of a sudden we were just burning. And
it feels weird at first because you're like, well, we're filtering some of these leads we're paying to get. But it's like then when you're giving the appropriate amount of time to the motivated leads, you start closing more. It's kind of counterintuitive, but you got to filter them down and then just focus on those really motivated leads.
Yeah. And a big concern people always have is they're like, well, I don't want to miss opportunities. And you know what sucks?
Yeah.
You're going to. That's
Once you come to terms with that and recognize that you're going to miss opportunities, or competitors are going to take stuff from you, like once you come to terms with that, it's like, yeah, it's fine. There'll be another one.
Exactly. It's an abundance mindset, and that's why you just keep your business process going, keep opportunities coming in the door, and then if you miss an opportunity, that's fine. You know, there's going to be more coming down the track. So cool. Right on. Anything else in that topic?
No, I think that's good. Especially today's market, making sure that you're getting the most motivated leads to work with you, because that's where you're going to find the best deals that you can hopefully wholesale to flippers that are looking for better deals right now in this kind of awkward time as we transition in the beginning of the summer into a new market.
Yep, exactly. But where do you find motivated leads? Well, if you start working with us,
you find them yourself
and get some group coaching at the instantinvestorprogram.com, and go check that out and schedule a call with one of us and see if you would be a good fit.
Why don't I just go and pay one of those companies that just sends me leads? Those are way better.
God, that's another one for
a
whole
different conversation.
Yeah. Why any like turnkey provider for
leads,
providing
leads in quotation,
providing VAs, leads in quotation, providing VAs, providing what else do people provide?
Turnkey rental properties.
Turnkey rental properties. Any of that stuff's a giant waste. That's something that we should definitely touch on in the future. Bro, I talked to this VA staffing firm the other day. I was just in a rabbit hole. We're in a rabbit hole now on this podcast. And it was like a referral from a friend. They're like, hey, these people have like acquisitions VAs. You should talk to them. I was like, hey, fine. The lady like emailed me. She's like, let's have an appointment, 15-minute appointment. $2,500 they're going to charge you to find a VA.
Please.
You know how easy it is to find a VA?
It doesn't cost you any money.
It costs you nothing. It doesn't even take any time. It takes you 20 minutes to go post a job listing on Upwork or Online Jobs at PH or Reddit or any.
Well, if you want to be super lazy too, you just tell them to send you a video of answering some questions, so then you get to hear them talk. Look at their education level, and then you can filter those. You don't have to. You've maybe spent like 30 minutes total, and you've got a list of 10 potential VAs that are rock stars.
Yeah, exactly. And these people want to charge $2,500 to. I guarantee you, what they do is that. And then they basically just take them and they go, here you go. You can pick one. That'll be $2,500, please.
Right. And then they charge you double what they're paying this VA to work for them. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you want someone to find you a VA, shoot me a DM. I'll find you one for $1,000 and I'll do better than them.
Yeah, seriously.
It'll be way better.
Jeez.
So ridiculous. Anyway, that's a different tangent. All right. But yeah, if you guys want to learn how to find motivated leads and close deals, even in this market, we actually are all of our guys in our guys and girl in our instant investor program have been doing pretty well. We had one of our guys just close his first deal. And he made $36,000.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that's like a good first deal. That's a solid first deal. Like good for him.
Yeah. So shout out to you, Corey, if you listen to this. We should get a testimonial from him too.
Yeah.
So instantinvestorprogram.com. Go ahead and book a call with one of us, see if you're a good fit. It's definitely not for everyone. We want people that are, wanting to work, wanting to get after it, and want to, make real money. It's not like a thing where you can come in and kind of dick around and expect magic to happen. That's not how real estate investing works. But instantinvestorprogram.com, go check it out. And then for the podcast, you guys should definitely share this, share it with your friends. If you have anyone that's remotely interested in being an off-market real estate investor or making, real money, come about our podcast. We appreciate it. We're looking to keep growing this thing. You can check out our podcast website, collectingkeyspodcast.com. And on there, we have different giveaways for different tools that we've used. From like our calculator, we have an ebook that sort of gives that general outline, all sorts of stuff. So besides that, share the podcast, download all the episodes, and I think that's kind of it.
Yeah, perfect. Let's get out of here.
Right on. Thanks, guys. Send us off.
Yeah, let's see. I had a really good quote. Let me remember it. It's in the spirit of Top Gun Maverick being released, which I'm pretty pumped about. I need to go to
You
theaters.
would be.
Don't you would be me. I'm an 80s kid. That's one of the most there's nothing.
But they're the Air Force and you're an Army guy. Or they're
They're the Navy.
Navy.
I don't mind Navy aviators, man. They're cool dudes, especially because Tom Cruise and Top Gun. I mean, it's an impact, right, on my life. And I was actually texting my cousin. I was like, there's literally nothing cooler in this world than Tom Cruise wearing a bomber jacket on a motorcycle with no helmet. Like that is the coolest thing ever. But the quote I had was, "You two really are cowboys," from Iceman, and that I feel like that describes us.
All right.
We're the Cowboys.
Two Cowboys here.
See you guys.
All right. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks for listening. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out at collectingkeyspodcast.com for tips and guides on starting your own real estate investment and wholesaling business.